Well, I am so excited today to have Brooks Conkle on with me. I met Brooks about a year and a half ago. I was selling one of my websites and he kind of showed some interest and was interested in a partnership. And we chatted a bunch. And I thought he was a really smart guy. But at that point, I just wanted it off my plate, get rid of it. And so we never actually did business together. But in the interim, I get his newsletter every week and I am just in awe of everything he is doing. And I wanted to bring him on for you to talk to him. So, Brooks, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hey, yeah, you are too kind, and you're right. We almost did business, but hey, we have a lot of life left. So who knows? Like maybe something else will come about us. So I am like basically I've been an entrepreneur all my life. If I'm candid, like I was the kid in high school that was like hustling, selling you some candy out of my backpack or doing that kind of stuff. Always just been interested in business, always been interested in like, how does this work? How does that work? How do these businesses operate? And then here I am. So here I am like 20 years later and I'm still that person. Like I have a birthday tomorrow. I turn 41 and I've basically been like a full-time side hustler for like 15 plus years.
Love it. Happy birthday. You're still
Thank you.
very, very young. So
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that.
yeah, just enjoy it. So, we're going to talk about multiple streams of income. We're also going to talk about AI because who doesn't want to talk about
Yeah,
AI?
for sure.
And then Brooks does a lot of testing of his ideas. We want to know how he gets those ideas. So, let's dig in. Tell
All
us,
right.
first of all, what are some of your best side hustle ideas? How did you come up with them?
Um, so like I almost put like when you say best side hustle ideas, I almost lump them in like in big categories because like I feel like a lot of this stuff connects, like all the dots connect. Like for example, you're on my newsletter. That's like my email newsletter. Well, that email newsletter itself is a side hustle. But okay, but how did I learn to launch that newsletter? Well, I run a local newsletter in my city. We have a local media company with a newsletter as a part of it. And so I had that newsletter first. You know what I mean? So like I learned that newsletter. So a newsletter is one, online, just like online brands in general. I lump them all into one category because that includes like a website, a newsletter, maybe it's social media. Um, Monetization is like you have to like they're almost side hustles in and of themselves because like something like affiliate marketing. I don't know if if your audience or if you've heard of that. Affiliate marketing is a way to monetize. It could be a side hustle, but it's also just something you can integrate into everything. And that's kind of what I've done. It's like over the years as I learn new little things, I just like I put them and combine them into everything else that I'm doing. I know that was a very broad, weird, scattered way to answer your question, but I feel like that's how I have to answer it. But I
We'll
mean,
dig
I
in.
can name a dozen things. Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Don't
exactly.
worry, you're not done
Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
I
yeah,
want
yeah.
to tap into that affiliate marketing. First of
Okay.
all, just as a brief tutorial for those of you who may not know what that is, a business, a person gets a relationship with a business and they say, I'm going to market your product. And if I sell your product, you're going to pay me. And they're set
Yep.
up, and you go with something that aligns with something you're interested in, something you're selling online. For example, I have investment in financial partnerships. And if they're products that I'm a fan of, I'll present them to my audience. If they buy them, I might get a small commission from companies that I'm affiliated with. So tell us a little bit now, get us into the weeds, okay? Because my listeners may not know, what do you mean starting a website? What about that is going to turn into money? How does that happen?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, people want like, including me, like we all want kind of like we want like, what's the best or what's the easiest or like what should I do? And like honestly, all this stuff kind of builds on itself over time. But building a website is like a skill in and of itself. Um, right? That you're going to learn a lot of things. There's things like WordPress, which is like I built probably 12 or 15 WordPress websites. That's like, the platform you can build a website on. Well,
Let me interrupt you and ask you,
yeah, yeah.
how did you learn to do
Exa-
that?
exactly. And that's why I preface what I said with everything builds upon itself, because the first website I ever launched, this is funny, we're going to rewind back. So what are we in? 2025. So I don't know how long ago, 15 years ago or something. I launched my first blog, and it was called The Southern Investor. And what I was doing was basically talking about like real estate investment deals that I was doing. There's another side hustle. Okay. Boop, we just added one to the list. I've had a real estate broker's license for about 15 years. We've run Airbnbs. I've done real estate flips, and I kind of consider that a side hustle, because it's not like I don't do it full time, all day long. But I launched a website, a blog, to talk about my real estate investing deals. That first site, Barbara, I didn't have a clue. I hired someone to help me set up a WordPress site. I think I hired someone to like kind of help design a logo or something. And I remember writing, articles and stuff. Okay, but fast forward to now, and I actually consider myself a decent graphic designer. I can now, I feel really comfortable setting up websites. And that's without AI. I'm sure we'll get into AI and stuff in a second too, but like, it's just like it's a culmination of stacking on these skill sets. You know what I mean? Where like if I were to start over today, I couldn't just launch a bunch of websites necessarily. Like, but yeah, I learned pieces and bits and pieces, and it's like I just started stacking all these skills together. And now I feel like it's much easier for me to do a lot of these things that I'm doing because of that, because I keep stacking skills.
You just mentioned in our first 5+ minutes, probably 5 different side hustle ideas, from starting a newsletter and monetizing a newsletter. And that means you get a whole bunch of subscribers. You're probably going to get those subscribers through social media, through your website, through possibly advertising. I know you do some advertising on Facebook. And so
which is a skill set in itself. That's also something to learn. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one. Then you've got your website. You write your articles. You drive traffic there. You've had niche websites where you've talked about different things. The one thing that seems very profitable to me as I read through your newsletter, and I suggest everyone sign up for it. We'll put a link to Brooks' newsletter below, because one of the coolest things he does is he is so generous with his information. He provides you a running tally on the projects he's working on, and then how they're going, how much money he's making, which ones are a go and which ones kind of suck. So love that. So
yeah, I'm not scared to say, hey, I tried this. This is not working so well. We're gonna put this one on the back burner or whatever, and now we're launching this. Yeah, it's just like that's a part of what building kind of in public is about. So,
and one of the things I thought was really interesting that you do, because I always like the idea of flipping. Like I flipped real estate. I built up a website and then I sold it. And you talked about in one of your videos that I watched recently, I think it was something about the best money-making ideas to get started now. And you said number one, I believe, was flipping items, buying cheap items at garage sales or going to free items on Craigslist, flipping those. So my question is that I totally forgot my question.
I don't know, but like you mentioning that, I wouldn't have remembered that necessarily, but we still do that. Like I am a threat to flip. I'm trying to think of what we probably just sold. What have we just sold? I feel like we sold some kind of furniture item or something recently. Like we will still do now. It has to be like worth our time. But when people ask me, Barbara, when people are like, "How do I get started? Like, what's the easiest thing I can do to make money?" Honestly, like that's still my answer today, 2025. I'm like, just flip something. Like it's so easy. Like there's still a skill to learn there too, though. Like you have to know like what is something like what can I sell this for? Which means you have to look online and find out, oh, okay, like what are people selling this for? And then you have to figure out where you're going to get the things, right? But yeah, you can buy stuff, or you can totally get stuff like literally for free. This last week we almost went and borrowed a truck to go load up someone's outdoor furniture. We did not even need it, but we were going to put it on our back. And then I was like, well, we'll sell it. This lady was moving out of town and she was like, hey, this is free. And my wife was like, Brooks, this is worth like $700. Like, can we go get it? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, for sure. But someone else snagged it before us. But yeah, like that's just like being on the lookout for opportunities. You know what I mean? So like I'm just always open to ideas and opportunities.
Actually, I have a funny story. When my father, who has since passed, was in college, he went to university and he was poor. I mean, he was scrapping any way he could to make money. And so he
Hmm.
noticed in his university newspaper that they were selling all of these different pianos. So they were selling them really cheap. So my dad went in and he bought them all. And then he resold them for a profit and made a really nice, tidy sum. And the
Love it.
university came back to him and said, why did you do that? I mean, what's up with that? And my dad said, well, you could have done that too.
Oh, like so they found out that he flipped them and they were
Yeah,
like
yeah,
upset
but
that he made money. Yeah.
there's nothing he could have done about it. I mean, he
Yeah.
bought them and he sold them. There was no
Yeah.
reason he couldn't have done that.
Of
So
course.
again, a lot of it's just initiative, ingenuity, and thinking. Now, I remember what I forgot before:
Okay.
domain name flipping.
Yeah.
Talk to our listeners about that because I find that really fascinating. Tell
Yeah.
them what it is. Does it work? Is it worth it?
Yeah. So because of my real estate background, I see like I think I see domain name investing or domain name flipping in like a complete maybe a different light. But I'll explain it, I'll describe it or whatever. Basically every website you go to, whatever.com, like for example, my newsletter, destroyedthatbox.com. That's the domain. That's the domain name. Well, every every day, hundreds, thousands of domain names are bought and sold every day. And people don't necessarily realize that, but businesses are started, whatever. People want to buy a name. There's people that collect names. There's people that hold names for 20 years in order to sell it down the road. A, a domain name may sell for $100 or it may sell for $1 million. I mean, there's a crazy difference, and people ask like, well, how do you know what it's worth? Honestly, that's a crazy like there is no definite answer as to what something's worth, but it's very similar to real estate. A domain name is just like the raw land of the internet, basically, that you're going to build something on. Like, so just like a lot, it's basically a like a real estate lot is what a domain name is like. And I think that's super interesting. I know it sounds crazy. I have a video on this. I accidentally sold a domain name. It's been about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And I sold it for like $1,200. And it was a real estate domain name from our previous brokerage. And I thought, I got the email saying it had sold and they were like, whatever, to transfer the funds to me. And I thought it was a scam email because it had been so long since I had like click to put the domain up for sale. And I was like, is this a scam? Is this even real? Anyway, yeah, no. So I sold the domain name. And so now I intend for that to be an ongoing, like one of my hustles, income streams. And so my goal is to buy 100 domain names. I've now gotten there. So like I have these names and um, I could go way into that, but it's a crazy bigger industry than I thought it was as I've been like diving in and learning more. Over this next year, I imagine I may sell possibly two of those 100. So it's not like I'm going to sell all these names. Like I may sell two of those names in the next like 12 months. But my intention is to reinvest whatever I sell into holding domain names because obviously you have to renew them. You have to pay for them every year. And also buying additional names. So ask me any follow up from there. I could talk for hours just on that. So
Just curious, where do you buy and sell them?
yeah, it's a good question. So the big this is something I've learned a lot over the last year. There's a bunch of different like there's marketplaces. People recognize GoDaddy, the brand GoDaddy. I wouldn't buy my domain names there anymore just because they're more expensive, but they do have one of the biggest aftermarkets. It's called Afternic. Um, it's like a giant, like imagine like a giant auction house for domain names where people want to go and get something it's not available. Like if the name's not available, but you want it, you have to buy it. So imagine Afternic being one of those. But there are a lot of other platforms that are like that. There's a big platform called Sea. There's a brand called Atom, which is like been pretty cool, and they have like premium domains that they sell. And then there's a ton of like domain brokers. So there's like imagine like a real estate broker that's like a real estate agent. There's like a ton of like domain brokers out there that will go and like broker your name to someone else to try to find a buyer, or the same. Maybe you want to buy a name. Like they'll try to find that name for you, and that entire industry exists. It's crazy. Just like in the real world of real estate, in the digital world, all of that is there. And like, yeah, if someone's interested, you'll there's so much, there's so much there.
Again, now we've gone through at least 5 or 6 ideas. For those out there that maybe work a full-time job and aren't looking to replace their full-time job, but they want
Hmm.
something where they can make some extra money, not spend a ton of time, how do they get ideas?
Yeah, I like ideas are all over the place, right? Like so, and you get these like people that are out there that like they've probably watched a YouTube video like mine with a bunch of like a list of ideas or some other platform where they're like, oh, okay, there's all these ideas. Like, do they work? Do they not? Like most of the content you see that just gives you the ideas, like they're just going to be big. It's going to be like the big picture, right? It's not going to be the nitty gritty of like how to do it. Like that's going to take someone time, energy, effort. You're gonna have to like skin your knees a little bit, and learn. But I hate to say like my newsletter, but like if you want to see a bunch of random stuff and what I'm doing, like feel free to check out there. But like ideas aren't the hard part. I feel like the harder part is really jumping in with one. You know what I mean? Like making the decision to like, okay, this domain name investing sounds really cool. How can I get going? And honestly, that's probably a great potential for someone that is like, oh, I have a job. Like that sounds fun. I could like research names and figure out some of that or whatever. But I will also say they're gonna have to skin their knees and learn that because they're not necessarily gonna like make a ton of money in year one necessarily. Or if they wanted to spend some time, they could buy a domain name that they're going to do outbound outreach and go find the buyer for that name. But yeah, ideas are like a dime a dozen. I mean, we could just name 50 ideas, but like that's not really the issue, right? Like really the issue is like someone has to just like choose one. They have to decide, okay, like what am I gonna like tackle and try to actually go after and like swing the bat with. So
So really what you're saying is there's always a learning curve.
I
And
think so.
so, yeah, and I certainly agree with that. Now, another idea that kind of backs on to domain name flipping is website flipping. A lot of people will buy either an up and running website, fix it up a little, resell it. That's a little more work, I think. But I'm going to pivot and ask you, when do you let a project go? When you just make a decision, this is not generating enough income for the amount of time that I'm putting in. And then letting that freed up time be diverted into something that is more lucrative.
Yeah, that's a good question because like for me, someone of my personality that like actually gets joy from like starting new things, like I have to be careful about that. Luckily it's actually also a part of my brand that I'm able to like kind of do all this random stuff because it's also like a part of the brand itself is me doing this stuff. But yeah, to decide when something's not working, like I can give you some pure examples from me for sure, like some of the like niche website projects that I have or had. I still own them and they're live. I put zero effort into them any further, and mainly that's because of like the Google disruption, and that's a whole conversation in itself. But there's this thing called artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, that came out a couple of years ago that kind of like basically upended the way we know search the way it works basically in general. Like it's like everything in the whole industry is changing. And so yeah, so I had some projects there. Yeah, I spent thousands of dollars, right? Like on multiple sites. I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't even actually. I'm not even sure. A lot of money that they're probably today sort of worthless, at least in the SEO sense. But here's what's interesting, Barbara, and I'll say this is that like those projects could come back to life should I choose a different avenue to get traffic to those websites, right? So I'm kind of thinking about them right now off the top of my head, and I'm like, no, that like there's actually um, like that there could be social traffic, there could be YouTube traffic. Like it would still take further investment for me, like money, time, resources, energy to like to continue building those brands. But I have for me at least, for the time, pivoted away from those specific projects. And how did I make that decision? I think I just knew that, like, oh, okay, the strategy I'm using is no longer a strategy. Like it doesn't work anymore. And like, so if something's no longer working, then that's a good time that you either have to like change your strategy or abandon ship. I guess you could say I abandoned ship, but the ship's still hanging out, it's just like it's floating in the water. And I guess I can hop back on board at some point in the future if I want to. So,
Great
um,
answer. Great answer. We're going to pivot because I know you've tested a lot of new AI platforms, strategies, tactics to try and improve your workflow and to generate ideas. Tell us what you're using and for what end and how they're working out.
every day. So it started with, I'll tell you where I started. It started with the moment Chat GPT, the tool came out. I said, okay, cool. I'm gonna use this daily. And I was just like, I don't know how this works. But something I did was I set it to open in default in my browser. So when I open my browser, it would open. So I was like, oh, okay. It reminded me to use it. So that's a cool tip for anyone that's like, oh, like if I just remembered to use this thing. And I did the same thing with a few other tools. A tool called Claude, which is a similar tool to like ChatGPT. Perplexity, which is Perplexity AI, which is kind of like they're kind of like a Google competitor. I did the same thing with those. Like they open in default in my browser. So much so that I probably only Google when I need something, when I need to learn something or find out something, or I want to have a conversation. I don't know. I'm only going to Google, if I had to guess, 10 to 20% of the time now, whereas it used to be 100%. I have voice conversations with ChatGPT. I mean, extensive ones. Like I've had 30 or 40-minute conversations like with the voice chat, and it's weird at first, but like why, like why do I do it? Well, because it's trained on everything on the internet, so it's like it it's intelligent, and so you can brainstorm and you can learn and you can bounce ideas, and okay, and so all that's just that's not even me getting into any specific tool, right? I can just name tools though. Let's see. Well, images, I mean, honestly, I make images in multiple things. Directly in Chat GPT, there's DALL-E, I make images there. I use a tool called Ideogram for images, Leonardo for images, which Canva just purchased this company called Leonardo. So I think it's going to be integrated there. Um,
And
on
give
the
us some specifics.
Yeah,
So you're talking about the how, but what are the
yeah,
questions you might ask, or what are the tools that or problems that these tools might solve for you?
images. We have articles where like you can toss in. So like in this one chat example, it's me. It's just like it's us tossing in like multiple articles and being like, cool, summarize all this. Like literally, you can just copy and paste like stuff from multiple places and say, okay, cool, like summarize all this. Okay, well, when it's summarized, then you can easily create something yourself out of that, right? It's just created a summary from three sources, and so then we'll formulate. So this first thing I just pulled up is literally for a news article for my local media brand, and so it's like it's helping us write an article, and then also images, like an image for that article. Um, I found
Great
myself.
example.
I'll give you another one that probably I used today and yesterday. I found myself a lot like writing copy, like marketing copy for stuff, and maybe I just need to write a paragraph or something. And I write it. I rarely ask like these AI tools to like, hey, write some marketing copy for this. Like I start with my own knowledge and brain or whatever, right? So, but I'll have something and I'll paste it in there and say, hey, here's some marketing copy. Can you tighten this up for me, or can you clarify this? Hey, can you make this marketing copy better? And I just paste in my copy, and it instantly comes back with something, and I'm like, I like that, and I'll take it, and then I may tweak a word, or I may say, well, I liked my word here better, so I'll keep that. But oh, I like what you said there, I'll keep that. And so it is literally a marketing. It's a marketing assistant. I use it. I use AI as my marketing assistant. And not even like honestly for everything. Like it's almost weird like how much I'm using it versus like Googling stuff. It's crazy.
Fascinating. And I think you're not alone. And we're just at the beginning of this. So, as we wrap up, Brooks, what advice would you give the newbies out there who are just say, I'm just looking to maybe earn an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month. How should they get started?
Um, if well, let me ask a follow-up question to you. Do they have money to invest? Do they have time to invest? Or do they have both to invest? Or should I just give scenarios for all of that? Because I feel like that makes a difference.
I think you can elaborate on that. That's a
Yeah,
good
yeah. I
point.
I think
For
yeah.
those that, for both cases, yes and no.
Yeah, because to say like, hey, I want to make a couple extra $1,000 a month or whatever, or like, let's just say 1,000. I want to make $1,000 extra a month. Awesome, but like, can you invest $1,000 a month, like monthly, in order to like speed that up, right? To like generate a business. Let's say you can't. Let's say you're like, okay, I have some extra time, but I don't have any extra money, and I need to make some money. Um, I'll always go back to flipping stuff. I'd be like, man, you need to flip stuff. Like you need to sell stuff locally. That's honestly what I always go back to. But after that, there's a number of things that you could pick, right? Like you could definitely create content. So if you like writing, cool, hop on Twitter or LinkedIn. But I would say you need to figure out how to build some sort of following so that you can monetize it. Like would be what I would say. If you like making video, awesome. Short form video is like creating all these little lottery tickets. Eventually, you may get one that booms and goes haywire and goes crazy. Just make sure you have something set up to be able to like build a community, like to grow an email list or whatever. Um, if you have money and time, then I would do that same exact thing. But you can throw some gas on the fire and invest hard. Um, if you had money and no time, I feel like domain name investing could be cool for someone like that. Um, because they're like, okay, yeah, I'm game to learn, and like you have to spend some time because you have to acquire domains, but then it can be somewhat passive once you get them set up to have for sale. Like the one I accidentally sold like 8 months down the line, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's pretty cool. So yeah, so it's different for everyone. But what I would say is that I feel like a lot of people get caught up in doing research and they don't swing the bat. Like you gotta swing the bat. Like you do all the research, but then step up to the plate and try something. Like and then just stay consistent with it for a while. You gotta swing the bat.
Brooks, this was so helpful. We covered so many different areas. I really appreciate your expertise. If you want to learn more from Brooks, we will put a link to his email letter below, his websites, and you can get in touch with him as well. I am Barbara Friedberg. You can find me on YouTube and at Barbara Friedberg Personal Finance. Thanks for stopping by. Leave your comments below, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.